we need to talk about Hillary Clinton, because when it comes to pizza and emails and John Podesta, well, this is as important as it gets. This is a video. It's interesting, in which she's talking about the Pizzagate story. Abby, Blue Eyes, says that this was worth a save. I would say that it's worth a watch. So let's watch this.
For those of you who don't follow it or may not remember it, you know, when John Podesta's emails were stolen, I hate the word hacked, they were stolen. They were stolen by the Russians. And they were then, through cutouts, given to WikiLeaks, which is nothing more than a tool of Putin and the Kremlin. And certainly people associated with Trump knew about it, because in August, Roger Stone was tweeting about how John Podesta would find himself, you know, in the barrel some point ahead. So on October 7th, one of the more infamous days in the campaign, the day started with the Director of Homeland Security, the Secretary, Jay Johnson, the Director of National Intelligence, Jim Clapper, saying that with high confidence they knew the Russians had been behind those hacks, those thefts of emails. That happened in the morning. Then the Hollywood Access tape broke a few hours later, and within 1 hour, such an amazing coincidence, WikiLeaks dumped all of John Podesta's personal emails. Now, if you read those emails, I think it's a little embarrassing to admit they're very anodyne, even boring. But because they were, the way that the Russians and their allies, whoever they turn out to be, were able to generate constant interest really was two factors. One,
okay, some of you are saying that the volume is a bit low. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to try to do something in real time. I'm going to disable my compressor. I should be doing this, but I see that the levels are indeed low. So here we go. Here we go. Let's see if you got better sound right now. I hope so. Let's go.
They sent the press on these wild goose chases all over the place. Oh, here comes 100 more. Here comes 1,000 more. Oh, my gosh. And then, of course, the other was that they created the illusion of transparency. If you think you're getting something from, sort of behind the screen, maybe it's more legitimate, even though you're being played by a bunch of Russians. And the psychology of it was brilliant. And, of course, it's part of the Russian propaganda effort, something called active measures, which they've used in many other settings, not just in our election. Well, you can only go so far with read these emails and listen to people, as in every campaign you can imagine, debate about what to do when and who says what and all of that. So they had to be weaponized. They had to have elements plucked out and perverted in a way that would be hard to imagine, and then sent back out into the cyber virtual world. So in one of the emails, John Podesta is talking about pizza. He's Italian and Greek,
And a very good cook.
And yeah, his risotto recipe is still there if you want to see it. And I'm sure there's something very nefarious about that risotto recipe. So all of a sudden, John's writing about pizza, and one of these really, I consider, evil people in the media world and in the online world, out of whole cloth make up this story that John Podesta and I are running a child trafficking ring in the basement of the Comet pizza parlor.
By the way, there is no basement.
Yeah, there is no basement. Now, you would think people would be laughing like crazy, shaking their heads, but if you migrate that crazy story to Facebook posts, to news outlets, there are people who will believe that, including this very unfortunate young man in North Carolina who believed it. It was meant to be believed to influence voting. Even I have to say I don't believe it was meant to be believed to influence somebody to pick up an AR-15 and drive from North Carolina to Washington to liberate the imaginary children from the imaginary basement of the pizza parlor. But in came this young man believing that he was on a mission because he saw it on Facebook. He saw it in other places online. He saw it in, quote, news outlets. And so he was there on a mission of rescue. People could have gotten killed. He shot his automatic weapon off inside this pizza parlor. The street where Politics and Prose is was shut down. There was an active crime scene because people who cared more about weaponizing information, making negative stories up, than the truth, than facts, or even public safety, and certainly any concern about children was non-existent. They were determined to stimulate, to propagate the attitudes that would grab some people in some states, some congressional districts, some towns and counties, so that they would be saying, well, gosh, if Hillary Clinton and her campaign chairman are doing something like that, they should go to jail. I can't vote for that. That's the worst example, but there are so many other examples that were the same pattern, from stealing to giving to WikiLeaks, to propagating, to weaponizing into somebody's, Google chain, into somebody's Facebook post. And I think it's one of the most serious challenges we face going forward in politics, not just at the presidential level, but up and down, because if we don't get a handle on information that is not just controversial, protected by the First Amendment, but aimed at spreading lies to the extent that they can cause behavior like we saw in this terrible instance, it will not stop. And I'm glad that the Congress and others are looking at Facebook and Twitter and Google, because they are the vehicles, one of the very first vehicles to deliver this kind of information to people.
Of course, they want to censor the channels. They want to censor the channels. The problem is Facebook. The problem is Google. And of course, the problem is X. The problem is the channels that these crazy people use for these conspiracies. I guess that's how it works. And in fact, there has been a discussion lately that they want to kind of overturn a legendary bill that was passed way before the internet as we know it existed, in which basically it rescinds any responsibility from a platform for how people use that platform. Okay, it kind of you know that these platforms have terms and conditions, and they make sure, for example, YouTube makes sure that creators on YouTube, like yours truly, we follow the terms and conditions of the platform. We cannot share certain stuff. We cannot break the copyright. We can abide by these rules, and everything's gonna be fine. But at the same time, YouTube doesn't. It's not responsible for any legal liabilities if I, for example, slander somebody, or I began when there's a libel or something against somebody, YouTube is not going to be liable about this. And they want to basically take that back. And that is going to be a mess. And I think that is not going to happen because there are already from many years ago, these tech billionaires would not approve that. And we know the weight that these tech billionaires have in politics for obvious reasons. You know that this Ouroboros, this snake that eats its own tail. What I see in Hillary's address is that she wants to, at the same time, make it like, oh, they just heard this in Facebook and they thought that was real. All the pizza conspiracies, all this stuff, crazy people on Facebook just believed this was real and they went for it. And that is kind of saying that the problem is how these platforms are responsible for what happens. And we know that there is an ugly precedent about this. And the ugly precedent is, of course, 2020. What happened in 2020? That you had any sort of different opinion about let's say, the way to deal with the pandemic, then you would be instantly silenced. No matter what you did, if you went against the narrative, you would be promptly silenced, which, again, what could really hurt if the government was basically forcing, so many governments were forcing everyone into this experiment. Okay, let's say that it didn't go too well for many people. It's a good thing that there were not that many more casualties because of this. Because both of the gain of function thing, thank you very much, please never do that again, and the very convenient timing that they have the solution just months into this, when it usually takes years to have a solution for this kind of troubles. So again, this I see this as, okay, we need to control what people share on the internet. We need to control what people say on the internet. Obama said that at one point. Biden said that at some point. Kamala said that as well. You see Hillary saying that, it's dismissing, on one hand, dismissing the conspiracy theory. No, there's no basement, these crazy people. And at the same time saying that it's dangerous for people to be talking about this conspiracy in this platform, because, yeah, you could have the ranch individual with a rifle go and begin shooting innocent people. And again, that is something that can happen. And that's why it's so important to be responsible. It's like, I have a responsibility over my audience. I need to try to search for some kind of middle ground, or no, middle ground is not the term, is to try to examine all the angles to something. And let's say there's that. Let's pretend, okay, there could be two scenarios. And one, the Pizzagate thing is real, and yes, they are eating babies and they talk about pizza and melted cheese and jerky, and it should be, all of that should be burned down. But at the same time, there's another, more insidious and equally dangerous narrative. That what if Pizzagate is something planted for precisely this to happen? For expecting them to people go crazy on Facebook, and that crazy people go and take matters into their own hands by creating this hoax in the first place. And then when this kind of shootings happen, they say, you know what? We need to regulate these social media sites. We need to regulate the free speech. We need to regulate what people say. In both the scenarios, you take a look at this. I'm thinking about this right now in real time. Both if Pizzagate is real and if it's not real, both the scenarios we need to kind of push back. because they are trying to control, and it is obvious, control that they want to exert in one way or another. So that's what we should be very, very wary about. But I would like to know what you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Power Pundit. Much love and bliss.